Thank you again, Fox Street Compound and Hive Industries for bringing together this event this evening. We're really excited to be talking about food waste. I'm talking with Blake here about a couple of things that he's working on, projects. In-depthly, a little bit about the Denver Food Initiative and what it entails.
Hi, Michael. It's such a pleasure to be here and talking about the Healthy Food for Denver campaign. The Healthy Food for Denver campaign recognizes that we, as citizens of this great city, have an opportunity to contribute to making it better by making sure everyone has access to healthy food. And we're doing that in two ways. The Healthy Food for Denver Kids initiative, which will provide over $100 million in the next decade to make sure our kids have enough to eat. And particularly that's outside of just school lunches, but how do we make sure kids have meals on weekends and in the summer when they don't have access to other opportunities, as well as bringing back home ec programs like gardening and cooking, nutrition education, so they have a lifelong desire to eat healthy. We're also working on the Healthy Food for Denver Communities initiative, where we're targeting neighborhoods that are called food deserts. Not everyone knows what a food desert is.
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, food deserts are neighborhoods where people don't have access to a full-service grocery store. So you can imagine, going through a neighborhood and asking, "Where's the nearest grocery store?" And they say, "Oh, just on the corner. Maybe it's just a 7-Eleven." Nothing wrong with 7-Eleven, but it's hard sometimes to get a full diet worth of healthy food there. And then maybe you go there and they say, "Oh no, the grocery store is a few blocks away," and maybe you go there and you see a Walgreens or a CVS, and maybe they have some more healthy food, but it's still probably not enough for a family, particularly if that family doesn't have access to a vehicle, or if they're kids that don't have access to anything but public transportation. In fact, some of the folks we've talked to through this process have said, living in a food desert means for me and my family taking a bus, at least 2 buses each way, at least 45 minutes if you plan it perfectly, each way, in order to get to and from a grocery store. You can imagine what that means for your ice cream or your cold fish or those things that you're able to bring back to your family is only what you can carry. And so for those communities, it's particularly important that we bring innovative solutions to healthy food for kids and also healthy foods for families through bringing in grocery stores, as well as cooperatives and innovative models of bringing food, so that those community food systems remain part of the fabric of a community and the type of store they want to see, that we all want to see as part of our communities.
How do you foresee that process I know once people vote on this issue, how will money be allocated, how it will be utilized within the community? What's that going to look like?
So a citizen ballot initiative is kind of an exciting process because you start with community partners and you start by asking the city if you can ask the public whether it's okay to vote. Then you actually have to go out and collect signatures just to get on the ballot. And those signatures are from your peers, your residents, your neighbors, the people you work with. And you're asking the question, is it okay for us to be on the ballot and ask everyone whether this is worth our time, our money, our policy being changed? And we brought 2 ballot initiatives through that process of collecting signatures. We need today over 5,000 each, or just about 5,000 each for each of the ballot initiatives in order to make it even on to the ballot. And once we're on the ballot, and then we have a process and an opportunity to communicate around how exactly the policies work. In short, we are looking to generate more revenues. So $100 million of revenues over a decade will come from less than a penny for every $10 we spend in a general sales tax, and that'll provide healthy food for Denver kids. That initiative is really special because it's not going to create more large government programs. It's really going to help certainly the schools and the nonprofits that are already doing this work, that already are based in Colorado, helping them in Denver, helping them expand their work to reach Denver communities and those most in need, because we want every one of those dollars to help people in the community as directly as possible. And those dollars will be administered by the Denver Food Commission, a new 13-person commission, 8 residents, and 5 government officials or bureaucrats who understand the rules. But the 8 community representatives really get to drive the spirit of those dollars within the requirements of the policy, right, which are pretty specific.
Yeah, and we've heard about things like this in the past. What makes this campaign different from those campaigns, and where do you really see us having an opportunity to really facilitate this shift?
So, I started doing kind of community food activism over a decade ago in the Denver area, and we started with some small actions, community gardens, and working with the city to take flower gardens and make them vegetable gardens that we could then use to harvest to provide to kids and to homeless families or individuals, because we believe that everyone deserves healthy food access. It's a basic need, and it makes us all healthier when everyone in our community has access to that. Over the last decade, we've thought about how do we scale up those small programs? How do we provide not just a few thousand pounds, which is a lot of food, but in the scope and scale of 1 in 6 families not having enough food, we simply need to do more. There have been a number of ballot initiatives in Denver that have sought to bring progressive social issues forward, but this is the first around food. And in fact, compared to many communities over the United States, this allows us to really show some leadership and really, what they say, put your money where your mouth is. And I think doing that, putting our money where kids' mouths are, is a really strong way for us to share our values for less than a penny for every $10, for really a nominal amount of money for most of us. And the great thing is the way taxes work here in Denver, that excludes food. So there continues to be more affordable food for many of our communities that need it most.
Well, I'm really excited about this initiative. Working with it, I'd love to see it make it to the ballot. I hope that you're inspired to get actively involved with it. Thank you so much, Blake, for all the hard work you do. We're really excited about helping promote this, and I hope that you guys get out there, sign up. Check where do we go to check to volunteer?
Absolutely. So if you want to volunteer, or if you're not local and you'd like to donate, healthyfoodfordenver.com allows us to get the word out to more people. You can volunteer there, help us collect signatures, or just help us talk to your neighbors about the importance of healthy food and why you think, as a resident of this city, we need more healthy food to have a better Denver for all of us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And thank you again all for being here. And once again, shout out to Fox Street Compound for hosting us, and Hive Industries. Also like to say thank you to Agolutions for helping partner with me and get my summer program going off this year. So I was really excited about that. Our next guest is going to be Karen Seed with Food Not Bombs. She's going to come up and talk about his, and then we're going to dive into these questions about this food waste policy. So Karen, if you'd come all up, you guys want to give her a round of applause, please? Thank you so much, Karen, for joining us up here again. I'm really excited to have you be here with me this evening. As you know, it's always an honor to spend time with you and to share, and I'm really excited about everything that we've done and everything that we look forward to doing in the future. Karen, can you tell us a little bit about specifically Food Not Bombs projects that are going on right now in the Denver community?
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for having me. It's an honor to be here. So for those who don't know, Food Not Bombs is a grassroots organization, a group of people who volunteer to bring healthy home-cooked meals to the street. So what we're doing now is we're just starting up again after a period of hiatus, and we're starting out with a once-a-month home-cooked hot meal out in central Denver around the capital area. That people can come and get a hot plate. So nothing wrong with bologna sandwiches and peanut butter and jelly, but this is something where people can really feel like they're eating something their grandma might have cooked for them, and can really feel that nourishment and have a sit down and talk with new people, meet new friends, and create a community together right there in the public area. So we're doing that. They're doing that hot meal. We're also doing bicycle outreach on the river. So we do rides and we connect with people who are living in the river areas and see how they're doing, see what they may need, and offer first aid supplies, harm reduction supplies, food, and also opportunity to connect with the organizing efforts with the homeless community.
Very cool. Thank you so much for all of that. It's amazing. Can you tell us how our community might get involved or actively help support in what's going on with Food Not Bombs?
Yeah, and sorry, one more thing. We also do special events. So in addition to doing meals on the street and outreach, we provide radical catering to groups like protests, work parties. We have an event tomorrow at a Permaculture Action Day. And we also cater certain community meetings. So how to get involved, definitely come out, connect with us, and come out and cook. Donate food, donate supplies, equipment, first aid supplies, anything like socks people can use out on the street.
I heard about bikes. You need bikes, right?
Yeah, bikes, bike trailers, materials to build more trailers, the whole works. Yeah.
And they're gonna reach out to you, or does Food Not Bombs have a Facebook?
Yeah, the best way is through the Facebook page. It's Food Not Bombs Denver.
Okay,
So,
great. That's
send us a
Food Not
message
Bombs
there.
Denver. Yeah, we want to make sure we get that plugged in there.
Thanks.
Thank you. I also heard, I know for a fact that you are partnering with a project that's near and dear to my heart, coming up in Pine Ridge here in September. Can you tell us a little about that project and what you guys are doing?
So that's the Indigenous Wisdom and Permaculture Conference out in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. That's going to be happening, we're getting there on the 26th, but the official conference is on the 30th through September 1st, right? Yeah. So Food Not Bombs Denver is bringing a mobile kitchen and a crew up there and bringing a bunch of food. And it's part of a regional Food Not Bombs effort. So we have some good friends up in Fort Collins who run Food Not Bombs Fort Collins, and we're partnering with them to create sort of this Front Range Food Not Bombs regional radical food service. So we're going to be crafting meals for the participants and the workers at the Indigenous Wisdom Convergence.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an amazing project happening. Indigenous Wisdom Skills Convergence. It's going to be multiple events going on. We'd love to have your guys' support and interest. Please check us out online. We've got a Facebook page. I don't know if you know anything about the indigenous people of the Oglala Sioux people of Pine Ridge, but they're suffering a lot of hardships right now, and we're actively working on organizing a way to be in proximity to help with the healing process and work towards social, emotional, and financial stability through this project. And so we'd love to have you come out and be part of it. This year's focus is going to be on decolonizations, moving from egocentric to ecocentric, subject very near and dear to my heart. I am one of the lead facilitators on that. I'm blessed to be working with a very well-rounded team of facilitators on it, and we're hoping that we can really work on helping people lean into their suffering, recognizing the healing that can come out of that experience, and grow collectively together to meet and reach everybody where they're at and help each other build community in such a way that we restore the environment. And Pine Ridge needs that as well. I'm working on a High Plains eco restoration project that will, hopefully over these next coming years start to showcase what they could do. I'm working on economic revitalization through a hemp program in a cooperative, which I'm really excited about. And then lastly, we're going to do an action of riparian restoration and plant some trees where they make the most sense. They're going to have the greatest opportunity for success with minimal amount of human interaction, and then hopefully show people that little actions like that can make a big difference. We're also working on rocket mass heater stoves to showcase, because if you know anything about these harsh winters in South Dakota, minimizing the amount of fuel necessary to heat your home is a really exciting thing to learn about. So yeah, we hope you guys get to come up participate. If you can't, at least sponsor, donate. And if you'd like to find out more about it, that's Indigenous Wisdoms Convergence. Well, I thank you so much for being up here and sharing this conversation about Food Not Bombs and all the things that they're doing. I hope you guys do check out that Facebook page, and in the future, get plugged in. I'd love to see you out there at an action. All right, thank you for joining us again, Blake. Karen, I'm really excited and interested touch base with you about this food panel discussion. We're really going to be talking about, from your perspective, what do you see some of the problems in either your industry or an industry that you work in close proximity to that are going on now in our food shed?
I think food is one of the most interesting industries because it's actually so many different industries, right? Agriculture and transportation and water and retail, right? All the different subcomponents of the food system. And what is particularly remarkable is how efficient in some ways and productive in some ways that food system is. So when I kind of zoom out and look at it, I mean, it's amazing. We can get almost any food across the world at almost any week in a grocery store. And what it reflects in some ways is the abundance of our planet and of the systems we've put into place. What's not always seen, right? The hidden side is that though we have a system that's so efficient at each point in the system, when you zoom out and look at the overall impact of that food system, and food waste is a perfect example of this, we see that abundance comes with an enormous cost. They estimate over 40% of food is wasted in this country. Right? And then we think about the more close to home, the costs. We've talked about the families. 1 in 6 families in Denver doesn't have enough healthy food to eat. It doesn't have enough food, period, to eat in any given year. Nearly 1 in 4 kids doesn't have enough food to eat. How do we have a world where we can have peaches and nectarines and kumquats year round, and yet so many kids and families have no access to food, and yet still 40% of food goes to waste? So we have a system that's working in micro, but in macro, as we zoom out, it's leaving behind too many people. It's leaving too many impacts, negative impacts on our water system, our dead spots in our waterways, and impacts on soil and soil health that aren't calculated in that kumquat that we get at any one time. So, I think there's an opportunity for all of us to try and zoom out as we think about what we buy and what we support and what we participate in, and say, like, well, logically, what are the other consequences, right? If I don't know where this food came from, do I know enough to consume it myself?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. And for the audience, if you're not familiar with this, just in the last 7 years that I've been in Denver, we've gone from 97% of our food being transported from out of state to now it's 99% because of so we've lost 2%. So we're actually going in the wrong direction about our own food security. And so, this is a huge issue. The built environment is only responsible for 3% of the planet, but it houses 80% of the populations, these cities, scapes, and these are post-industrial design, but I don't think that they're really reflective of what it's going to look like going forward, because we don't have industry the way that we did that made it necessary for us to live in such close proximity. It's just become a pattern that we're very familiar with, and so those are some things to consider when looking at this problem. Karen, do you have something to add as far as being a grower, what you've seen and what you've observed with the waste that goes on in our food system, and also with your activism, because that directly deals with food waste, right?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, I guess what I wanted to add is that I started off as a grower, right? Well, I started off as a preschool teacher, actually. Became a grower, became an agricultural educator, became a food distributor, and a food waste distributor specifically. And the thing that's really coming alive right now is the message that it truly is connected. In the sense that all of the disconnected instances of waste, be it you go in the back of the grocery store and the dumpster is full of raspberries, or you go out on the street and someone is feeling depressed and hopeless to the point they don't want to live anymore, Or you go out to rural Weld County, Colorado, and you have, these fracking operations burning off methane, just for nothing. This waste is connected to an economy that externalizes the cost of what it produces, that externalizes the human cost, externalizes the environmental cost. And that all those disconnections are themselves connected to the greater macroeconomic system that we might call capitalism, that we might call extraction economy. And so, waste comes in so many forms. And I think that we can all do our part to address the waste we see in our day-to-day life, and that any act of creation is any act to take responsibility and accountability for the waste, and instead put it to use, and instead connect it back into the circle, back into the connection of an economy that can create from it, is definitely a step towards weaving the web back together.
Yeah, beautifully stated. My perspective on what I'm observed is, since the Green Revolution, there's been a huge population boom. 7.6 billion humans on the planet. This is a beautiful thing to think about. We are thriving as a species. There is great opportunity, though, to put us with a relatively small percentage of that total global population. You're talking 500 years ago, first contact, Christopher Columbus, less than 500 million people on the total planet, right? In 500 years. We're talking about the population of Denver, where we are now. It is not going to take much for us to recognize that if a few of us organize collectively in such way, we can really maximize our impacts and make a huge difference and a shift towards this, because people succumb to patterns, and most people don't want to be bothered with being part of switching the pattern. They say it's about 3% of early adopters that make a trend happen, right? And so, we only need and some trends take different data marketing strategies, but at most 18%. We get 18% of the total global population going in this direction, starting to think about being in harmonic balance and relationship with nature. That's all it's going to take. And we've already seen it. Since the Paris Accords, India has done an amazing job of inspiring activism. 600 million trees in less than a year. Right now, the carbon credit financial banking systems is in the trillions of dollars in money that they're putting towards these restoration projects. Now, unfortunately, these systems are all designed to exist within the current paradigm of capitalism, and we need to understand the inherent flaws of capitalism. Adam Smith, when he wrote what the stratification of the labor forces looked like to set capitalism into motion based on this global economy, the foundation of it was slavery. And so when we use that as the economic base for a system, it's going to be flawed when you no longer have slaves in the system. Well, we've seen what that's come. We've become a byproduct of enslaving ourselves to the dollar. Right? And the way that we work to get those dollars are also some inherent human ecological patterns. Path of least resistance, right? Water and air take this. We want to take money in that way. These are not things that I believe we were put here to do, right? I believe that we were put here to amplify the harmonics of the natural environment, that was showcased for literally thousands of years before we got it in our head that civilization was the king. In this agrarian system that has gone forth, you can see all of these patterns that keep on building and perpetuating on themselves to that moment of first contact where Christopher Columbus sincerely got here and believed, look at all this free stuff, right? When he, in his own words, said that life was deafening on the island of Haiti. Life was deafening. And if you know that story and that narrative, he didn't just randomly pick IT. He had actually stopped in the Bahamas, stopped in Cuba. All of them pointed to where their king was. The IT people, the Taino people knew where their king was. Huge economic infrastructure established of transport of goods and services, of people, and an inherently healthy and happy population that now had to succumb to a pattern of human practices that were not what was best for the planet. But this economic scale, right, was what was normalized and what has led to now. I mean, it's interesting to me that we called this the Green Revolution post-World War II, right? When it really didn't have anything except for paper green to do with it. Right?
I mean, why is the refinery called Suncor? You know.
Yeah, put a nice, happy, smiley face on the sun. And
They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. Yeah, great. Well, no, that's my 2 cents on that. I really appreciate you guys giving it as well. You know, I really see the problem being in the pattern, but I also see the solution being in the pattern. What are some of the best practices that you're utilizing now on a daily basis to get you towards becoming more food sovereign, and most importantly, in really upcycling those streams of waste and utilizing them as an opportunity for surplus and redundant and rejuvenation within your community, within your household, and with you as an individual? Karen, I'd like to pose that question to you first.
Okay, yeah. What's working, you know? We are. We're working really hard. Everyone in this room is working really hard for a new economy, for a healthy earth. What we're doing as Food Not Bombs is working with warehouses, with food retailers to sort of help them let go of the bureaucratic tendencies. We have a couple tools. You know, people here may be well versed with the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act that was passed in 2000 in Congress federally, which can help. Which basically what that says is that any food donor is not liable for what may happen to the food after it leaves them, as long as they donate it in good faith and it's not spoiled. They cannot be held liable for, you know, someone getting sick or whatever. And that really helps because, you know, with capitalism, it's very hard for people to donate if they feel like they're not protected on paper, you know. Right. So we try to work with people on a human level using the tools at hand to build trust, you know, and to close those loops that may be constructed in these abstract systems of, oh, I'm liable, or oh, we have to do it that way because corporate said so, and you know, we can't. Instead, we can approach it in a human way and use like our relationships, our friendships, to close those waste like holes, I guess I could say, and make that available. And quite frankly, like for our families, like if we don't have enough food, we go and we get it from the trash. And if the dumpster is locked, we unlock it. Like sometimes you know, so like all I can say is like every aspect of work towards a new world is very important. It's you know, people throw around the phrase diversity of tactics, and we definitely ascribe to that. You know, whether you're working, doing petitions, trying to get things on the ballot so that they can be voted on, or whether you're doing direct action to put pressure on some like company, some extraction company, like you're working for a new future, you're working for a creative economy, and that all those actions should be, I feel they're valid. I would one thing that's working for me is to never criticize or judge a person because I don't feel that their tactic works for me, you know, unless it's literally causing harm. Somebody's creating something, somebody's like contributing to a better society. Like, they should be allowed to do that, you know. It may not be for everyone, and that's why that's wonderful that nobody has to all do the same thing.
Right.
You know, that's the beautiful thing, is that we have so many people, we have so many issues to be working on, and all these issues are connected, that nobody has to force themselves to do anything. Just go where the passion flows, and we'll create it together. So to sum it up, I think that what we stand upon is solidarity with all struggles, all struggles against extraction and oppression and enslavement. And from that foundation of solidarity, we can connect so many dots. That's why Food Not Bombs can go to the Indigenous conference. That's why we can go share food at the vigil at the ICE detention center. That's why we can go share food at the Right to Survive meeting, where, you know, homeless people on our streets, it's illegal to be homeless in Denver, as y'all know. That's why we can like connect those dots, because everybody eats, you know, and by eating, we take the creation of the world into our bodies, and we find common ground with one another.
Beautifully said, and I just want you to know that one of the things that I'm most honored about being and sharing space with you at any given moment is just your heart and your mind being of service to the public in the community. I know that when I come to your house, I'm going to get fed. I know that it's going to be delicious, and I know that there's going to be a cold beverage, and then I know that you just do it from such a position of service and love that it just really makes me always want to be around you. And so I'm just so thankful to have you in our lives, and thank you so much for that response. It's beautiful. Blake, I'm going to turn it to you. I too have known Blake for 3-4 years. We actually talked about my glue project maybe 3-4 years ago, what I envisioned, and I keep working backwards from the full spectrum gift that I plan to bestow upon our great community to this moment in time where I'm 3 months into actually having it forecast, and then to have our paths cross again and get this opportunity to share space with you and stuff is also a great honor. So the question to you is, like, what are you doing immediately right now in your proximity to food to divert waste and to get those things going in your life?
So I think sometimes we get lost in the abstract system of it all, and it's nice to take it to our fridge.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a remarkable study done about a year ago by some real heroes who dug through about 80 households worth of trash here in Denver and weighed it to understand best, with the science of weighing trash, how much food were we throwing away and how much of that could we save if we did something a little bit differently. And those folks from the NRDC found that the average household was throwing away about 3.5 pounds of food per week, and that 2/3 of that food was actually potentially edible if people had intervened a little sooner or done something. And so one of the things I've tried to do and learn from that group is, like, when you start to see the strawberries, they start to look a little sad, they start to shrivel up just a little bit. They're not bad, but they just start, you can see it. You can see it coming. You just throw them in the freezer. Right? The same with bread or tortilla. Like the simplest things can just prolong so much of the food that would otherwise go to waste. And part of it is, trying to see that and trying to look for those opportunities to save, even in my own, kitchen, in my own fridge, in my own counter. How can I reduce that 3.5 pounds?
If I may, that it raises to a beautiful point. So one of the things that I'm doing immediately right now is I'm buying the food that's on its last, and I go ahead and I process it and I freeze it, and then that just makes the most amazing smoothies. Mm-hmm. This is something I picked up from my sister like 3 years ago. She has all these frozen bags of mangoes and papayas and pineapples and berries and stuff, and I'm just like, where'd you get that? I bought that 3 months ago. I bought, when it was like almost nothing. And now we're just enjoying this cold, delicious smoothie. And it just, And it reminds me of something that I should have remembered from my childhood when we would go gleaning and we would get, a truckload of peaches or lemons or limes or apricots or plums or grapes, and then we would take them home and we'd process them all as a family, and then come summertime the next year we'd have all these frozen lemon cubes, right, in these huge bags in the deep freezer. You pop a couple of things of those in your water when it's really hot out, and then, boy, does it make a huge difference. So I mean, really, thank you for bringing up that story again. I didn't mean to jump on it. Are there a few other things that you're doing?
Well, I think you bring up a great point, that one of the most important things we can do, in my mind, in terms of food, is to touch it more, right? I think the more we can, I've seen a child, find a potato in the field and be totally confused about why that's there, or the magic of a broccoli plant. I don't know if you've ever seen broccoli, but
hard to grow in Colorado.
Yeah, hard to grow, but if you go early or go late, sometimes you can make it work. And you part the leaves as it's just starting to come up, and you're like, oh my God, like a broccoli's a flower? I eat flowers? I didn't think I liked flowers. It turns out that's not a bad flower. And all of a sudden, you understand something different, right? And then take that and cook it or preserve it and then have it later, right? I do think the more we can touch food, the more our kids and our families can touch food, the healthier it is for us, and the healthier it is because it connects us back to the ecosystem from which it grows and the community that grows and supplies our food. The only other thing I'd say is like, we all have to start where we are, right? And we all have to do what we can. And so sometimes we say, I'm going to vote with my dollars, And someone said to me the other day, we were collecting signatures, and they said, I never liked that, because what that means is people with more dollars get more votes. And so what I was thinking, I was like, it's a good point, actually. I think we all have to, to participate in the multiple levels that we can, whether that's growing food. I love to grow my own food, whether it's cooking and preserving food, whether it's composting, whether it's thinking about the food that I do buy, the restaurants that I do go to and what they believe in terms of food, whether it's thinking about where my investments go, right? If I'm so lucky to have a retirement fund, where does that go? And how does that contribute to the better world? And then thinking about, how do I participate in democracy, right? I mean, we've talked about systems that go to waste. In some ways, we so often think our votes go to waste, right? We are like, oh, my vote doesn't matter. But actually, for us to have an impact on this system, for us to change the things that we want to change, we have to use every tool at our disposal. And one of the most important, and the ones that is most powerful in helping us as a community come together, is conversations like this, media, and the fact that we can participate in democracy together. We can decide where roads go and where bridges go and where buildings go and how tall they should be and how money gets spent, right? Collectively, how our collective money gets spent. And sometimes I think we look at our federal government and we're like, it's too big, it's too far away, they never call me back, I've called Corey like 1,000 times. Corey, call me back. And I'm still waiting to have that opportunity to have direct voice. But the other day I emailed our clerk and recorder. She got right back to me. I emailed city council members. They got right back to me. The city attorney got right back to me. Here I get a response in days, and it's personal, it's direct, and we have respect for each other. We may not agree, but we have respect for each other. And I have great respect for the work that we can do and the work we have to do to create a more inclusive, vibrant, resilient economy that works for everyone, a community that works for everyone.
Beautifully stated. I just really want to thank you for that well thought out response. For me, I too take a holistic approach to it. I'm very much into my carbon footprint. Keeping data tracking what that looks like and making sure that I have the equation balanced in such a way that I can feel really good about it. Doing the composting, we do that collectively as a household. We enjoy the fact that we only put our trash out once a month. This is a big thing for us, and that our recycling is usually more full than our trash in the same thing. But the majority of our recycling gets dealt with at home. We don't put everything in the recycling. I shred my papers, right? I utilize that in my compost. I utilize that as bedding for my chicken and rabbits, and then from there, after they do their business on it, when I clean that, I make sure it goes into the compost. And, so, these are things that I'm constantly thinking about as I'm cycling. I talk about the freezer thing. I'm a big, I don't like energy waste. It bothers me the way that our households are designed and the way that we utilize temperatures. So even though we have modern conveniences, we make sure that we turn off the air conditioning every night at 4 o'clock, open up all the windows, get the fans going, right? We sleep with the fans going throughout the night. We have a good breeze going collectively throughout the day till about 11, and we don't need to really kick on the air conditioning, as where some people might just utilize that 24/7. I put frozen water bottles in my freezer. This is huge. The thermal mass of those water bottles will keep your condenser from kicking on. You will lower your energy bill by, I've estimated, as much, depending on the age of the refrigerator, but as high as 30% on some older models, and 12 to 15% on some younger ones. For you kids, you should be telling your parents, hey, if I can save you a little bit of money on the energy bill, can I get some new shoes, right? You put these water bottles in there. Hottest part of the day when you're out there in public, take a water bottle with you. Great way to thermal regulate, right? We're going to utilize this strategy up at Pine Ridge. It's estimated to be in the high 90s, maybe in the hundreds at that time of the year. We're going to need to be thermal regulating. People are going to be out of their creature comfort and normal climate, and their bodies are going to be going through some changes. But boy, a nice frozen cool bottle of water make all difference in the world. My waste with my relationship with my toilet, very personal, right? I do not use that but once a day. And I have a very elaborate system to make sure that when I use it, it's done through ceremony. I bathe every day, but I only shower once every 2 weeks. I brush. I have hygiene. I have good hygiene. I don't smell right, But I'm very water conscious. Very water conscious, and it's extremely important to me. And so these are part of my daily rituals, practices, and routines. I don't turn the lights on during the day. I make sure the windows are open. I spend majority of my time outside. I like to cook outside, eat breakfast outside, spend my time outside, sit on my bench outside, sit in my chair outside. I don't like to be indoors as it is. And then I'm very intentional about how I plan. There's this concept in permaculture called stacking functions. And I want to make sure that when I'm utilizing my F-150, which I feel I have to have because of my size, I've tried to draw smaller cars. People tend to crack jokes. But my truck makes me feel comfortable, makes me feel safe. I feel like I can get the work done, but I'm cognizant of the footprint that it has. So I keep the RPMs low. I'm not an aggressive driver. I'm mindful of the other drivers and my relationship to them, right? I get excellent gas mileage out of that F-150, right? Because it's expensive to fill up, and I'm cognizant of that as well. I only like to fill up once every 10 days, which is a big challenge with an F-150 because I know people who fill up 2-3 times a week. So, me doing it every 10 days is a big deal. I like to walk and ride my bike when at all possible. And then I really offset my footprint by getting involved in my community, doing actions, being out there, meeting with people. That's where my serious investment is at. And that's where I hope to maximize this impact over time. And so those are just some of my strategies for doing it. Put a couple of bricks in your toilet bowl. It's as simple as that. You'll be displacing water by about a gallon every flush by just putting 2 red old used bricks in your toilet, right? And that's a big deal.
In the tank, right? In
the upper tank. Yeah, not in the bottom. Yeah, good. Yeah, in the upper tank, you'll displace about a gallon of water, right? And that adds up if you're a family of 4, right? And we're using on average 60 gallons apiece, right? And the global average is about 6. So we're well exceeding what we're supposed to be utilizing in water. And there's a lot of surplus there, a lot of opportunity to do things different, and especially in a dry, arid climate like Colorado. Well, thank you guys so much again. the next question is the solutions. Like, what are we going to do here moving forward? What specifically are you working on? You've told us about the healthy food initiatives, but I know you have some events specifically where you're targeting people, ways that people can get plugged into that. Same thing with Food Not Bombs, and then I'll close with what we're doing with In-Action Climate Mitigation Brokerage and my eco-social design project, Green Labs Urban Education. Also, the Fox Street Compound, the Hive, and my partnership with Agillution. So we'll talk a little bit on that. I'll let you have the floor first.
Yeah. Well, I would invite everyone to be as engaged as possible in the Healthy Food for Denver campaign, because I think it's really important that we take this step in making food part of building our community, building our city the way we want it to be for ourselves and for our future. And there's many ways to get involved, whether it's donating or attending one of our events. The best way is to find us on our website, healthyfoodfordenver.com. We're on all the social media platforms, so just Google that and you'll find us out there. We'd love to see you. We'd love to have you as part of our community. And I think the other thing I'd say is, there is a network of remarkable organizations and individuals, volunteers behind this movement. We have over 60 people actively collecting signatures with us out in the field. We've got a network of endorsing organizations, each of whom have passion about food, have opportunities for you to volunteer as well. So if you're not ready to jump into policy, maybe check out the Grow House and see if you can get involved there, or Denver Urban Gardens and see if there's a community garden near you where you can get involved, or Metro Caring where you can get directly involved, helping people have access to healthy food, helping get a sense, communicating, talking, breaking down those social barriers between people who don't have access to healthy food every day, people who are having different struggles, like joining Food Not Bombs and getting to really talk to people in our communities. Sometimes I think the most powerful thing we can do is get out of our cars, get out of our houses, get out of our neighborhoods, and start walking around talking to people in their neighborhoods, in their context, and understanding what drives their passions, what drives their fears, what city, in a way, do they live in. We've collected signatures sometimes in 4 or 5 different parts of the city during a day, and it's remarkable to see how different communities are, and yet how similar we are when it comes to things like food. Everywhere we go, we can talk about food, and people are like, "Yeah, I eat." And that's a wonderful start to any conversation, is the common ground. And as we go forward and talk about what's it mean to you in terms of what you cook and why do you cook that, food gives us a language to connect with each other's souls and culture and find a little bit of nonpartisan place where we can just agree to wanting to have more better health, more better environmental beauty and sustainability around us, and that cuts through almost all the other stuff. So I think to the extent, hey, if you don't even if you don't care about food and you find yourself in a hostile environment, maybe bring it up, because it helps kind of tampen things down and helps us find that connection to ourselves and to each other. I think that's the most important thing we can do right now, is let's leverage the tools we have, because at the end of the day, I like to say it's just us.
Yeah.
No one else is going to swoop down and save us. We're not going to get $1 million check. Sorry, I wish I wish, but it's just us. It's us participating in co-creation together and using every tool at our disposal, a diverse set of actions to build that. And I think whatever that is for everybody, jumping in is the first next step.
For sure, well put. Yeah, like I always say, hey, if you're not part of the solution, you are the problem. So get off your butt and do something. Beautifully put. Excited to hear more about all that, and of course, to work with you in the future. We've got a lot of great things coming up. Hope you guys stay tuned to this YouTube channel, and that you continue to follow us with the Denver Healthy Foods Initiative, Green Labs Urban Education, Food Not Bombs. Karen, will you tell us more about what you got going on and how people can get plugged in and involved?
Yeah. Well, definitely check out Food Not Bombs on Facebook. Food Not Bombs Denver. Just search it. You'll find our page. We are constantly updating that with the different events we're doing and the weekly regular food shares. And also, wanted to plug the Right to Survive initiative that we're sponsoring. As y'all know, being homeless is illegal in Denver. It's illegal to cover yourself from the elements in Denver. And, you know, I really, and Food Not Bombs really stands on the tenet that, you know, we can't be part of the solution if we're not also stopping the harm from happening. And we really need to decriminalize homelessness in the city if we're gonna say that a lot of fancy, nice words about it being inclusive and resilient, you know, because like we really can't create an inclusive and resilient society without all the members of society. And that starts with recognizing people's humanity and dignity and right to choice, even if they're choosing to eat a McDonald's hamburger, you know. And we have to first look in someone's eyes and recognize who they are. And then so much can come from that connection.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what more to say. Just get involved.
Yeah, get involved for sure.
Get involved. There's so many things.
Denver Homeless Out Loud.
Yeah, check out Denver Homeless Out Loud. Check out Right to Survive. Check out the Colorado Village Collaborative. That's our network of tiny home villages that's becoming very successful. We already have one village called Beloved Community over at 38th and Blake right now, and it's going to be moving, but staying in the area. So they always need hands, especially when they do the builds and the moves. You know, because how are you going to have healthy food if you don't have a kitchen or a place to lay your head? How are you going to have healthy food if your zip code is the most polluted zip code in Colorado, like 80216 is? You know, get involved with. There's so much information out there. We're in the information age, and it's kind of overloading sometimes to just, you know, hammer our audience with names and numbers, but all I can really say is get involved with your community, and so much will come from that.
Yeah, and I'm a really firm believer in us recognizing the prosperity that we have. We are by far in the most richest time period in all of history, but the stratification is observed. And you really should be judging our civilization by those with the least as opposed to those with the most, because it's estimated that as much as 400 times more capital in circulation than natural resources on the planet, and 1% owns 50% of that, and of that 50%, 80% of that's owned by the corporate government entities and stuff like that, and the other 20% we're all struggling for. The majority of that is not going to us. It's going to the 26%. And to me, it's one of the reasons why I've opted out of the system, right? You know, I'm on this fair trade, barter, exchange, and gigging kick that I think makes a lot of sense for me and my lifestyle, and it gives a lot of balance to it. But I too, you know, I'm looking for economic and financial opportunity. I'm Michael Alcazar with Inaction Climate Mitigation Brokerage. I'm working on this Pine Ridge restoration project. We need funding for that. You know, that's a very expensive project. You know, I need to get paid for my time and services and stuff, a fair work trade. I'm doing it right now, you know, on the work trade tip and time banking it, and, you know, hopefully, but I'm hoping to get people excited about it, interested in investing in it and moving it forward. I have a lot of great visions for the project. I'd like to also plug 1 Million Trees for Haiti, our friends at Yonsei Lamu. They're doing excellent work in Haiti. They're keeping that 1 Million Trees campaign going strong. They're planting trees. Had an excellent opportunity to work there last year, and I look forward to working again in the future. Same thing with Black Mesa Caravan. This glue project's coming to an end. My interns are going to be finishing up in there in the next week. We have an event tomorrow. If you guys can make it, that'd be awesome. It's going to be taken at Four Seasons Artisanal Market. We're going to be doing a maker's fair from 9 to 3, entertaining the kids and your family, teaching about rain barrel water catchment and erosion control, hydroponics, soil, insects, and doing some crafts and some arts. Please come out and do that. And then also follow these videos on Fox Street Compound and The Hive. We'd like to thank Adulutions and all of the sponsors. I'd like to thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for spending your evening with us.
Thank you
I
so
really
much.
appreciate you guys coming out. Okay, so now is Q&A. If there was any questions that were silly, we could take one or two of them. If not, then we'll go ahead and call it a night. Okay.
While you do
Right
that,
on.
I might just say, if people want one comment.
Yep.
So if folks would really like to get involved with food waste specifically in Denver, I'd encourage you to take a look at Denver Food Rescue and see the great work they're doing on bikes to get
Denver
that moved
Food
forward.
Rescue.
Take a look at scraps to understand where bikes are also being used for compost. Take a look at We Don't Waste to see some of the great work they're doing to rescue different types of food and move it around. And I think I've mentioned the others already, but there's great ways to get involved if food waste is your thing, right here in Denver, multiple organizations.
Yeah, there are all kinds of great groups out there too, working in best agricultural practices. Learn how to grow your own food. I mean, this is extremely important to food sovereignty and resiliency. I'd love to see communities starting to organize in such a way that they're trading locally sourced cheeses and milks and eggs and honey and vegetables, on a fair trade scale, and working together in close proximity so that you're walking it to your neighbor as opposed to driving to someplace and having to pick it up out of a grocery store. So, get involved with them. Grow Local Colorado, Grow House, 25 and Change,
Plant the Seed Project.
Plant the Seed Project, Mow Better Greens, Unity Farm, Seeds of Power, Unity Farm. There's lots of great ones out there. Please reach out to us. If we're missing any of you, it's not because we don't love you, because we got mad love for all of you and all what you're doing out there in our community. The Denver Permaculture Guild is amping up. Get actively involved with them. We're going to hopefully be partnering on some future actions with them. Permaculture Action Network. There's just a lot of great things going on out there. Please feel comfortable reaching out to any one of us at any time. Question?
Thanks for your time, guys. My name's Nick Phillips, and I have a nonprofit that is trying to kind of do positive activism projects as well. I wanted to ask, I recently read an article about community fridges. So is that a possibility for Denver, or regulations in such that we could potentially see that become a reality?
Yeah, for sure. Do you know about these projects? There's one up in Fort Collins in particular that's doing very well, and that's just basically where companies, businesses that are in food production actually put a refrigerator in the alleyway or in close proximity to it that just is marked free, and the stuff that's immediately not used that day is left overnight for community members to come by and pick up. And so I believe that there are a few are there some in Denver that you know of?
I don't know of any personally. I think you really need land. You need to, someone needs to own some property or have an agreement with the landlord. And I don't know of any in Denver, but I think that you should do it. And, I don't know about regulations, but who cares? Because to me, it's better to ask forgiveness than permission with that kind of stuff. You're sharing food to feed your community, so. Yeah,
and as far as the regulations or control, I believe it's just a temperature control thing.
Yeah.
You can store food for up to 24 hours as long as it doesn't exceed 42 degrees. So if you put it in a refrigerator, then it's totally acceptable. You leave it for a 24-hour period. Whatever's not retrieved in that amount of time then goes into the waste, or can be upcycled through a different waste stream. I like to feed that to my animals, and I like to make sure that it goes to there, because that's a great way to fix, they're called chicken scraps for a reason, right? And so they love it. They like the diversity of the palate. But I haven't heard of anybody in the city, but I have heard of other cities, and so that would be a great initiative to partner on in the future. Thank you so much for your question.
Yeah, thanks again for your time, guys.
Yeah, and just one last thing that I wanted to plug before I forget is this screening of what really inspired this, and I want to tell that story. So I had the honor and privilege of working with my sister in Nashville, Tennessee, over the Earth Day celebration weekend. And we had a beautiful time. Nashville does an excellent job of organizing the Earth Day celebration. They had a lot of very exciting people there and stuff. And her project, Plant the Seed in Nashville, is doing an amazing thing with educating young people about how to grow their own food and how to deal with waste and how to cook and stuff like that. And they work with primarily pre-K through first grade. And so they're moving up the educational ladder and going to start expanding their curriculum. So I'm honored and beautiful that I got to spend that time with her. Her husband works for a restaurant. He's in the restaurant industry. Miel's in Nashville, if you get the chance to check it out. Beautiful circumstance, farm to table opportunity, locally sourced, amazing chef. They put together a panel discussion and viewing of the movie Wasted, the story of food waste that Anthony Bourdain, his last documentary, worked on. And I just was inspired and honored to get invited and to be a part of that event and to get to see a screening of this film. And it was extremely educational for the general public. It did it in such a way that hopefully makes sense. And I really, really want you to plug in and take the opportunity to see this. I would like to hope that we can continue this conversation over the coming months. It comes out in October, and host a panel discussion and really start working on some solutions to be inspired so that we can continue this momentum going forward. The movie comes out in October, so we have some time to plan. I'd love to get people actively involved around a screening of that and really doing the work from it, because it's something that I've been talking about for decades, having been raised in 3 industries. Real estate, which I really didn't have much with because a lot of the women in my community, that's what they did. But I did have a lot to do with food. We had restaurants in our family, and construction. Those were the 2 things that I was raised in, and I got to observe and I got to learn a lot about. And I was raised in California at a time where being green was important and highly valued as part of the California culture. They called us avocado heads, and I proudly wore that in the 70s. And I thought it was a pretty cool thing, seeing how it's my favorite food. So I really enjoy sharing my information that I know about working in the restaurant industry with others, and I also share about construction. And so I'm really excited about doing the work moving forward, and I'm really excited about this opportunity to really spotlight this film that has got an amazing narrative, and I really hope catalyzes us into the next phases of this shift. I thank you guys so much for giving us this opportunity. Again, a shout out to Fox Street Compound, the Hive Productions, and all of you for all the great things that you are doing, from the Denver Healthy Foods Initiative, Food Not Bombs, Inaction Climate Mitigation Brokerage. Thank you. You guys have a wonderful evening.
That's a wrap.
George Costanza.
Yeah, I know.
Were those warm? I thought they were. They're LED.